The African wilderness is a place of breathtaking beauty, a land where nature reigns supreme, and every moment holds the promise of wonder or danger. For Gail Matson, an 80-year-old adventurer from Minnesota, this was meant to be her last great journey, a final grand adventure before slowing down. She had dreamed of this, watching the golden sunrise spill across the vast landscapes of Zambia's Canoe National Park, listening to the calls of birds unseen, feeling the raw pulse of the wild. But the wilderness does not grant guarantees, and on one fateful day in December 2018, the dream turned into a nightmare. The morning began, as so many others had before, a game drive into the heart of Africa's oldest and largest national park, covering more than 8,700 square miles of untamed land. The safari vehicle rumbled over the dirt paths, carrying Matson and 5 other guests, along with their seasoned guide. Cameras in hand, they marveled at the world around them, at the quiet majesty of the land, unaware of the unseen presence lurking nearby. Then, without warning, it happened. From the thick brush, an elephant emerged. Not just any elephant, a bull. Massive, powerful, unpredictable. Its movements were fast. Too fast, it was charging. The guide, trained for such encounters, reacted instantly, but there was no time, no space to escape. The terrain was rough, the path blocked. There was nowhere to run. A voice, desperate, called out, "Hey! Hey! Hey!" A futile attempt to halt the inevitable. The bull had us struck. With terrifying force, the elephant barreled into the side of the safari truck, flipping it as if it weighed nothing. Metal crumpled. Bodies were thrown. Chaos erupted in an instant. When the dust settled, the unthinkable became reality. Matson lay lifeless. One moment she had been holding a flower, smiling for a photograph, savoring the adventure she had long awaited. The next, she was gone. 4 others sustained injuries, cuts, bruises, the deep shock of surviving what should have been impossible. One woman was so badly hurt she had to be airlifted to South Africa for emergency care. The rest, shaken but alive, would carry the horror of that day forever. The news of her death rippled through those who knew her. Friends back in Arizona, where she also had a home, struggled to process the loss. She was living life, they said. She told us this would be her last big adventure, and yet no one could have imagined how it would end. The tragedy left many questioning what had provoked the bull's attack. No one knew for certain. Climate change had been disrupting migration patterns, forcing animals into unexpected areas, creating unforeseen conflicts between wildlife and humans. But there was no easy explanation. The wild does not follow human logic. It does not offer reasons, nor does it pause for grief. It simply exists, raw, powerful, and indifferent. The safari company, Wilderness, reeled from the loss. "Our guides are extremely well trained," said CEO Keith Vincent. "But in this instance, the terrain and vegetation were against us. There was no way to move the vehicle out of harm's way fast enough." Authorities launched an investigation, but there was little to uncover. The truth was already known. The wilderness is unpredictable. Even the most experienced travelers, the most careful guides, the best laid plans, none of it matters when nature decides otherwise. For Gail Matson, her last great adventure did not end in peaceful reflection, nor in quiet reminiscence of a life well lived. It ended in the raw, unfiltered reality of the wild, a reminder that while we may journey into nature seeking beauty, it remains untamed. It does not yield, it does not forgive. A split-second decision, a predator lying in wait, a tragedy that unfolded in front of horrified onlookers. On a scorching day in July 2016, a family's trip to Badaling Wildlife Park in Beijing took a terrifying and deadly turn. The park, known for its drive-through safari experience, allows visitors to observe Siberian tigers up close from the supposed safety of their vehicles. But one simple mistake, one moment of letting their guard down, turned a routine drive into a horrific nightmare caught on camera. It all began with an argument. Inside their car, tensions flared between a woman, later identified as Zhao, and her companions. Frustrated, she did something unthinkable. She opened the car door and stepped out into the tiger enclosure, oblivious to the danger lurking just beyond the tree line. She barely had time to react. From the shadows, a massive Siberian tiger exploded into motion. With lightning speed, the 400-pound predator lunged, clamping its powerful jaws onto Zhao's body and dragging her away before anyone could intervene. Screams filled the air. Panic erupted inside the car. A man and another woman, later identified as Zhao's mother, jumped out, desperate to save her. But in the wild, no act of heroism goes unpunished. As Zhao's mother sprinted toward her daughter, a second tiger struck. This one was even faster, stronger, and more brutal. The massive beast took her down with bone-crushing force, mauling her in front of the helpless onlookers. Unlike Zhao, she would not survive. Surveillance cameras captured everything. The footage, later leaked onto social media, showed the horrifying attack unfold in real time. The sheer force of the tiger's ambush was enough to leave even seasoned wildlife experts stunned. Viewers watched in disbelief as the animals dragged their victims into the underbrush, disappearing from sight. By the time park officials and emergency responders arrived, it was too late. Zhao, though critically injured, had miraculously survived the attack. Her mother, however, had been mauled to death, her selfless attempt to save her daughter costing her everything. In the aftermath, questions swirled. Park rules clearly stated that visitors must remain inside their vehicles at all times, windows up, doors locked. Yet, Zhao claimed she never knew what she had signed before entering the park. She later stated that she believed the form was a standard entry registration, not an agreement that explicitly warned of the danger. To make matters worse, Zhao accused the park of failing to intervene. She alleged that a park official, stationed in a nearby vehicle, failed to come to her rescue, a claim that sparked outrage across China. The tragedy served as a grim reminder of the unforgiving nature of the wild. Siberian tigers are among the most lethal predators on Earth, capable of taking down prey many times their size. Once they lock onto a target, there is no escape. A simple mistake, a fatal miscalculation, and a mother who gave her life in a desperate bid to save her daughter from the jaws of death. The tiger enclosure at Battling Wildlife Park remains open, but those who pass through now do so with a chilling awareness. One wrong move could mean the difference between life and death.
There are moments in life when courage is tested in ways no one could ever anticipate. For Quinn Swales, a seasoned British safari guide, that moment came in the vast wilderness of Zimbabwe's Hwange National Park. What started as an ordinary dawn safari, a chance for tourists to witness Africa's raw beauty up close, turned into a terrifying fight for survival. The 40-year-old guide was leading a group of tourists on foot, tracking lions through the golden grasslands. The air was still, the morning sun rising over the savannah. Then, in an instant, everything changed. A massive male lion, unpredictable, wild, and ready to strike, charged straight at them. It was an attack no one saw coming. Faced with the unthinkable, Quinn didn't run. He didn't panic. He did what true leaders do. He put himself between danger and those who depended on him. With every ounce of his training, he tried to distract the lion, to divert its lethal rage away from the terrified tourists. But nature is merciless. The beast overpowered him, mauling him to death in front of the group he had sworn to protect. The guests walked away unscathed because of him. His sacrifice wasn't just the act of a guide doing his job, it was the ultimate display of bravery, a final selfless decision to ensure others would live. And yet, the irony of it all cuts deep. The very park where he lost his life had been in the global spotlight just weeks before, when another lion, one known across the world, met his own violent end. Cecil, Hwange's most famous lion, had been illegally hunted by an American dentist in a killing that sparked international outrage. The 13-year-old predator, with his distinctive black mane and commanding presence, had been part of an Oxford University conservation study. But that didn't stop Walter Palmer from paying $50,000 to lure him out of the park's protected zone, shooting him with a bow and arrow, then tracking him for 40 agonizing hours before finally finishing the job with a rifle. Quinn Swales had admired Cecil, a keen photographer himself. He had even used a photo of the legendary lion as his Facebook cover image. And now, in a cruel twist of fate, he had fallen to one of Cecil's kind, another powerful male, acting on pure instinct. His death sent shockwaves through the safari and conservation world. Colleagues, friends, and tourists who had once walked beside him struggled to process the loss. One tribute, raw with grief, spoke of a man who had been living his dream, who had turned his back on a career as a pilot to embrace the wild, to guide others through the very landscapes he loved most. He had always been the one to share knowledge, to make others feel safe in the presence of Africa's most formidable creatures. But on that morning, in that brutal, heart-stopping moment, he was the one who had no escape. And yet, his final act was not of fear, but of heroism.
Dr. Thomas McAfee had spent his life dedicated to medicine, to leadership, to the pursuit of knowledge. But on a September day in 2013, none of that mattered. The towering force of nature that is an elephant, one of the world's most powerful creatures, brought his story to a sudden and brutal end. It was meant to be a final escape before a new beginning. At 58, McAfee had achieved remarkable success, serving as a respected dean at UC San Diego and preparing to step into a prestigious new role as chief executive of the Keck Medicine of USC Medical Foundation. Before taking on the next chapter of his career, he had chosen to indulge in one of life's great luxuries, a safari in Tanzania's vast, untamed Tarangire National Park. The golden plains, the towering baobab trees, the endless sky. It was the kind of trip that promised adventure, beauty, and serenity. But it would end in horror. On that fateful day, McAfee and two companions ventured out on foot, eager to see Africa's majestic wildlife up close. It was a rare and intimate experience, one that many dream of but few dare to do. But deep in the wilderness, where the rules of man no longer apply, nature can turn ruthless in an instant. A herd of elephants, massive, unpredictable, and fiercely protective, emerged before them. Perhaps they were too close. Perhaps the elephants felt threatened. What happened next was pure terror. Sensing danger, the trio turned and ran, but McAfee lost his footing. The ground beneath him betrayed him, and in that single, devastating second, his fate was sealed. One of the massive creatures charged, its thunderous steps shaking the earth. There was no escape. The elephant trampled him, its sheer weight crushing the life from his body. Though help arrived, there was nothing anyone could do. He was gone. His sister, Skylee McAfee, spoke through the grief, knowing her brother had understood the risks. He was doing what he wanted to do, she said. He had been to Africa before. He had marveled at its beauty. He had respected its dangers. But respect is no shield when faced with the raw, untamed force of the wild. His death sent shockwaves through the community he had left behind. Colleagues at UC San Diego were in disbelief. The loss of such a brilliant mind, such a respected leader, was almost impossible to process. "It's a true tragedy and great loss to all of us," wrote Munir Soliman, Assistant Vice Chancellor of Health Sciences International. Plans for memorial events were already being made, but nothing could fill the void left behind. McAfee's body was taken to Arusha Lutheran Medical Center as arrangements were made to return him home. Meanwhile, questions lingered. Had they been part of a guided tour? Had there been armed rangers present? Or had they ventured too far, unaware of the danger lurking just beyond their peaceful retreat? In the vastness of Tarangire National Park, where the land belongs not to man but to the creatures that roam it, there are no second chances. Elephants, despite their gentle reputation, can be deadly when they feel threatened. Weighing up to 15,000 pounds, a charging elephant is an unstoppable force. They are not cruel nor vengeful. They simply follow the laws of the wild, and for those who cross into their domain, even the smallest misstep can be fatal. For McAfee, the dream of an African safari became a nightmare. In the end, nature did not care about his titles, his achievements, or his plans for the future. It only saw an intruder, and it did what nature does. The wild does not forgive. It does not show mercy. And in the vast, beautiful, and unforgiving landscapes of Africa, Even the most seasoned traveler can find themselves at the mercy of forces far greater than themselves. A seasoned safari ranger, a towering beast in a violent rage, and a tragic ending no one saw coming. In December 2018, Madikwe Game Reserve in South Africa became the scene of a horrifying tragedy when a bull elephant, overcome with uncontrollable aggression, broke through a fence and stormed into a tourist area at Leopard Rock Lodge. Mark Lautenbach, a highly respected guide, wildlife photographer, and one of the most skilled rangers in the country, stepped forward to defuse the situation. But in the unforgiving world of the wild, even the most experienced hands can be powerless against nature's fury. The elephant, a 6-ton bull in musth, a state of heightened aggression caused by surging testosterone levels, was in no mood to be confronted. Witnesses say the massive creature fixated on Mark and, within seconds, charged with deadly intent. The ground trembled under its weight as it bore down on him. Before anyone could react, Mark was struck and trampled repeatedly, suffering catastrophic injuries. Musth makes bull elephants some of the most dangerous animals on Earth, flooding them with up to 6 times their normal testosterone levels, turning them into unstoppable forces of rage. Even female elephants in heat aren't safe during this period, let alone a human trying to intervene. One local expert, speaking under anonymity, described the scene with chilling clarity. Mark was one of the best, a man who understood the wild like few others, but this was something no one could stop. That elephant had made up its mind. Despite Mark's experience and knowledge, nothing could be done once the attack began. The beast left destruction in its wake before rangers made the grim decision to put it down, fearing it would strike again. For the safari community, Mark's loss was more than just a tragedy. It was a stark reminder that no matter how much we learn about nature, it remains an unpredictable, merciless force.
The African wilderness had always called to her. It was the adventure of a lifetime, the grand journey she had promised herself, a final, unforgettable trip before her 80th birthday. But in the heart of Zambia's vast Kafue National Park, where the untamed beauty of nature stretches endlessly, her dream turned into a nightmare. Gail Matson had come to witness the raw majesty of the wild, to feel the pulse of the land beneath her, to see the great creatures of Africa in their natural domain. She had no way of knowing that one of those creatures would bring her story to a tragic end. The safari vehicle rumbled over uneven terrain, carrying its passengers through a landscape teeming with life. The sun painted the sky in shades of amber and gold as the group scanned the horizon, eager for a glimpse of the animals that roamed freely. Then, from the dense brush, movement. A massive bull elephant emerged, its towering form cutting through the foliage like a ghost of ancient times. At first, it was nothing unusual, just another breathtaking moment on an already extraordinary trip. The group watched in awe as the elephant moved with slow, deliberate steps. Cameras were raised, a moment to capture, a memory to keep. But something was wrong. The elephant's posture shifted, its ears flared. A deep, rumbling growl vibrated through the air, a sound that sent an instinctive shudder through anyone who heard it. Then, without warning, it charged. The vehicle came to a sudden halt. There was no time to escape, no route to safety. The elephant was too close, moving with terrifying speed, an unstoppable force of nature. A panicked gasp, a blur of movement, then impact. The massive tusk crashed into the side of the vehicle, sending it lurching violently. Metal groaned under the force. The world flipped upside down as the truck was overturned like a child's toy, rolling onto its side. Shouts filled the air, a chaotic mixture of shock and terror. Dust and debris rained down as the passenger scrambled, dazed and disoriented. And then silence. Gail lay still. The others around her stirred, groaning as they clutched their injuries, but she did not move. She had lived for adventure, but in this moment, adventure had taken her. The aftermath was a blur of frantic efforts. A guide shouting for help, injured passengers being tended to, a call for emergency assistance. But for Gail, there was nothing that could be done. Her journey had ended in the place she had dreamed of, but not in the way she had ever imagined. Her daughter, Rona Wells, would later confirm the unthinkable. Her mother, the woman who had always embraced life with an unbreakable spirit, had died in a tragic accident while living out her dream adventure. The footage of the attack, shared across social media, showed the brutal reality of what had happened. The enormous elephant, its fury unmatched, storming the vehicle and toppling it in mere seconds. The helplessness of those inside. The fragility of human life against the power of the wild. The company that had led the safari, wilderness, insisted that their guides were among the most experienced, the most well-trained. But on that fateful day, experience was no match for the unpredictability of nature. The terrain had blocked the escape route. There was no way out. It's extremely rare to see an elephant that irate, said Marlon Dutoit, a wildlife photographer and safari guide. Across Africa, thousands of tourists embark on safaris every day without incident, but nature follows its own rule. Gail's body would be returned home to the United States. With the support of local Zambian authorities and the US Embassy, she had set out on what she called her last big trip, expecting to return with stories to tell. Instead, she became part of one. Friends remembered her for her adventurous soul. She told us this was going to be her last big adventure, said John Longaboth, a friend from Arizona. She was about to turn 80. She thought maybe it was time to slow down. But the wild does not slow down for anyone. In the vast landscapes of Africa, where nature reigns supreme, there are no guarantees. Even the most breathtaking journeys can take a turn into the unknown. And for Gail Matson, her final adventure became a haunting reminder of just how powerful and unpredictable the untamed world truly is.
The African sun bathed the landscape in golden light, casting long shadows across the open plains of the Lion Park near Johannesburg. It was meant to be a day of wonder, of breathtaking encounters with the wild, one that Catherine Chappell, a 29-year-old American, had dreamed of. She had always sought adventure, and this was no exception. A gifted visual effects editor, she had helped bring fantastical worlds to life on screen, working on Game of Thrones, Divergent, and Captain America, the Winter Soldier. But no special effects could have prepared her for the raw, unpredictable force of nature that would meet her that day. She had come to South Africa with purpose, not just to see, but to contribute. A passionate conservationist, she had plans to make a film about the war against poaching, to tell the stories that so often went unheard. She had arrived a week early, eager to explore before her volunteer work began. But on that June afternoon in 2015, something went terribly, irreversibly wrong. The safari vehicle moved slowly through the park, the air filled with the deep, rhythmic sounds of the wild. Then, from the tall grass, a lioness emerged. Muscles rippling beneath its golden coat, it moved with silent grace, its amber eyes locked onto the vehicle. Chappelle, drawn to the moment, lifted her camera. The urge to capture the beauty before her was irresistible. But the rule was clear. Windows must remain closed. She rolled hers down. The lioness approached, each step deliberate. A few feet away, it paused, staring. Then, in an instant, the calm shattered. A blur of motion, a flash of teeth. The lioness lunged. The attack was swift and brutal. Before anyone could react, powerful jaws clamped down. Chappelle had no time to scream, no time to pull away. The force was unimaginable. Blood sprayed across the seat. Chaos erupted as the guide, Pierre Potgieter, fought desperately to drive the lion away, his own hands torn in the struggle. His heart pounded, then faltered. Pain lanced through his chest as he collapsed, the weight of the moment proving too much. Within minutes, it was over. Chappelle, the bright, adventurous soul who had touched so many lives, lay motionless, her journey tragically ended. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but there was nothing they could do. The news sent shockwaves through those who knew her. Her family, her mother Mary, her father John, her siblings Jennifer, Lauren, and Ryan were left reeling. Katie was brilliant, kind, adventurous, they wrote, their grief spilling onto the pages of social media. Her energy and passion could not be contained by mere continents or oceans. She had lived so fully, embracing the world with open arms, only to be taken in an instant. Back home, the industry she had worked so hard to be a part of mourned. She had been part of an Emmy-winning team, her work leaving an indelible mark on the world of film. And yet, it was the real world she had longed to capture, its beauty, its danger, its truth. Authorities opened an investigation, but the facts were clear. The lion had done what lions do. It had not attacked out of malice or cruelty. It had simply followed its instincts. The wild is not a place of safety. It is not a place that forgives mistakes. Catherine Chappelle had traveled across the world in search of something greater than herself. She had dreamed of adventure, of telling stories that mattered. In the end, she became one. The African wilderness is breathtaking, yet unforgiving. One wrong step, one miscalculation, and the wild reminds you who is truly in control. In 2018, a 22-year-old woman learned this in the most horrifying way imaginable. What was meant to be a casual visit to a South African game reserve turned into a nightmare, a chilling moment where human curiosity met nature's raw and lethal power. She wasn't supposed to be there. The woman, whose identity was never publicly revealed, had accompanied a friend to a lion sanctuary on the 3,200-acre Dinokeng Big 5 Game Reserve, just outside Pretoria. The visit was informal. She was tagging along while her friend interviewed the camp's manager for an assignment. The reserve was home to Kevin Richardson, the so-called Lion Whisperer, a world-renowned conservationist who had forged an incredible bond with some of the most powerful predators on Earth. For the woman, this was a rare chance to see lions up close, majestic, awe-inspiring creatures in their natural environment. But what she didn't know was that something was already in motion, something deadly. On that fateful day, Kevin Richardson had taken 3 of his lions out for their routine walk. It was part of their exercise and stimulation regimen, a controlled interaction between man and beast that Richardson had done countless times before. Everything seemed normal. The lions, powerful yet familiar, strolled through the reserve as Richardson and a colleague monitored them closely. Then, everything changed in an instant. A lioness, sleek and muscular, locked eyes on her target. An impala, a swift and delicate antelope, had entered the clearing. The lioness's instincts kicked in. Without hesitation, she exploded into a full-speed chase, her powerful muscles rippling as she pursued the terrified prey. But somewhere along that pursuit, the chase veered off course. The impala darted, zigzagging through the landscape. The lioness, fully consumed by the thrill of the hunt, followed, covering a staggering 2 to 2.5 kilometers in mere moments. And then, she encountered something unexpected. The young woman. She had been standing outside the fenced area of the camp, blissfully unaware of the approaching danger. She and her friend had been snapping photos, capturing the raw beauty of the African wilderness. She never saw it coming. The lioness did. There was no time to react. Before the woman could turn, before she could even scream, the lioness struck. With a force that could shatter bones, the massive predator pounced, knocking her to the ground. The world went silent for a split second, then erupted into shrieks of terror. Her friend stood frozen in horror, watching the attack unfold. The lioness, driven by primal instinct, did what apex predators do. Teeth sank into flesh, claws tore through skin. It was over in moments. Her lifeless body lay still, the golden-brown predator towering over her, breathing heavily, blood staining its powerful jaws. The African bush, once peaceful, was now eerily silent. Paramedics raced to the scene, their sirens piercing through the stillness of the reserve. Desperate efforts were made to save her, but the injuries were catastrophic. Nick Dahlman, a paramedic spokesman, would later describe the scene as horrific. The injuries were very severe, he said. It was a deadly attack. Her friend, though physically unharmed, was in a state of complete shock. The nightmare had played out right in front of her eyes, and she could do nothing to stop it. Kevin Richardson was devastated. This wasn't a rogue attack. The lioness hadn't hunted the woman out of malice. She had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Richardson took to social media to express his sorrow. "I am devastated, and my heart goes out to this young woman's family," he wrote. He explained that his team had sent out notifications that they were walking the lions that day, as they always did. The lioness had been chasing an impala. This was not supposed to happen. Dinokeng management was quick to clarify. The lion involved in this fatality was not one of the wild, free-roaming lions of the Dinokeng Game Reserve, but that didn't matter. A woman was dead. The tragedy cast a dark shadow over Richardson's sanctuary. His reputation as the lion whisperer, a man who had spent his life building trust with these apex predators, was suddenly under scrutiny. Just weeks before the attack, supermodel Cara Delevingne had posed with one of Richardson's lions for a glamorous photo shoot at the sanctuary. In a heartfelt post, she had called the experience humbling, marveling at the chance to see such magnificent creatures up close. Now, that same world of intimate encounters and breathtaking beauty had revealed its darker, more brutal side. Visitors still come to Richardson's camp. They still take safari drives, still pay to volunteer and experience the thrill of being near some of the world's most powerful predators. But the woman's death serves as a chilling warning. In the wild, even the most experienced handlers know, lions do not reason. They do not hesitate. They do not forgive mistakes. One moment of distraction, one misstep, one wrong place at the wrong time, and in the blink of an eye, you become the hunted.
There's a fine line between admiration and danger, and in the wild, crossing it can be fatal. In the heart of Zimbabwe's Mana Pools National Park, where the golden sun filters through ancient trees and the rhythmic sounds of nature fill the air, a group of tourists arrived, eager to witness Africa's most majestic creatures up close. They had come for adventure, for the thrill of seeing the untamed world in all its glory. But for one woman, that desire for the perfect photograph became a tragic, irreversible mistake. She had traveled thousands of miles, her excitement building with every mile of dusty road that brought her deeper into the wilderness. This was her dream, to stand in the presence of Africa's giants, to see elephants not behind the bars of a zoo, but roaming freely in the land they had ruled for centuries. When her group entered the park, fate brought them directly to what she had been hoping for, a herd of elephants, their massive frames moving slowly through the sun-baked landscape, their trunks swaying as they grazed. The sight was mesmerizing, almost surreal, but for her, observing from a distance wasn't enough. She wanted to capture the moment, to preserve it in a way that a simple memory never could. With a camera in hand, she made a fateful decision. She stepped out of the vehicle, moving closer to the herd, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and caution. Perhaps she believed she was still at a safe distance. Perhaps she thought the elephants, so often depicted as gentle, wouldn't mind her presence. Then everything changed. A single movement, one that no one could fully understand, set off a chain reaction that would end in horror. One of the elephants, a towering beast of unimaginable strength, suddenly stopped grazing. Its ears flared, its small eyes locked onto her, its massive body tensed. Something had unsettled it, something had pushed it too far. The charge was instant, a thunderous explosion of movement and fury, the air filled with the deep, earth-shaking roar of an elephant in distress, a sound that triggers a primal fear in anyone who hears it. The ground trembled as the massive creature closed the distance in seconds, its trunk raised, tusks gleaming in the sun. There was no time to react, no chance to retreat. A scream ripped through the air, then a sickening impact. The elephant struck with devastating force, knocking her to the ground before its enormous feet came crashing down. The world blurred into chaos, shouts from the other tourists, the pounding of hooves against the earth, the dust rising in thick clouds. When it was over, the silence was even more deafening than the attack itself. Park rangers rushed to the scene, but there was nothing they could do. The woman, once so full of life, so eager for adventure, lay still on the ground. Her injuries were too severe, her body too broken. She succumbed to them before the day was over. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the park, another grim reminder of the consequences of underestimating the wild. Tinashe Farawo, a spokesman for the Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Authority, spoke cautiously about the incident. No one knew for certain what had triggered the attack. Had it been her sudden movement, the sound of the camera, or was it simply a reminder that even the most peaceful-looking creatures have their limits? But one thing was clear, this was not an isolated incident. For every tragic story, there had been warnings. The rules were always the same. Keep a safe distance, stay in your vehicle. Remember that these are not creatures to be controlled. Yet time and time again, excitement and overconfidence led people to break those rules. And nature, indifferent to human curiosity, responded the only way it knew how. The tourists who had witnessed the attack would never forget what they had seen. The sight of the woman stepping forward, the elephant's sudden shift in demeanor, the devastating speed of the charge. For them, the wilderness would never again be just a place of beauty. It would also be a place of brutal, unforgiving reality. In the animal kingdom, there are no second chances, and for one tourist in Manapools, a single moment of awe became the last moment she would ever see.
On a quiet evening in May 2018, deep within Safari Lodge of Uganda's Queen Elizabeth National Park, a horrific tragedy unfolded, one so sudden, so brutal, that it left an entire community in shock. At the Mwea Safari Lodge, a 2-year-old boy, full of innocence and curiosity, wandered just a few steps too far. He had been following his nanny, unnoticed, when the darkness of the wild came for him. It happened in an instant. A leopard, lurking in the shadows, saw its moment and struck. Before the nanny even realized what was happening, the beast had clamped its powerful jaws around the tiny child and vanished into the night. A scream shattered the air. The nanny turned, eyes wide with terror, just in time to see the leopard dragging the helpless toddler into the thick brush. She ran after them, desperation fueling her chase, but it was useless. Within moments, the child was gone. A frantic search began, but the jungle was silent, swallowing its victim whole. Hours passed. When dawn broke, the grim reality set in. Beneath a tree, rangers discovered the child's remains, his tiny skull, a few scattered bones. The leopard had not only killed him, it had fed on him. The cruelty of nature had never felt so raw, so merciless. The boy's mother, a game ranger at the park, had been at work when her son was taken. His father, Francis Manana Nabugier, spoke of his unbearable grief. "Uwe gave us the coffin," he said, voice hollow with pain. "My son is gone. Nothing will bring him back." But grief was not enough. He wanted answers. He wanted justice. How could this happen in a place where people were meant to be protected? The Uganda Wildlife Authority scrambled to respond. Bashir Hangi, their spokesman, admitted that the leopard had now tasted human blood, a chilling fact that meant it might strike again. "We are working towards tracking it down," he said. "It is not good to keep it there." The attack sent shockwaves through Uganda, a country where leopard encounters with humans were rare. But this was not just a tragic accident. It was a nightmare that no parent should ever have to endure. The loss of a child in such a gruesome way, taken by a predator from the very place meant to be a home, was almost too much to bear. As the search for the leopard continued, one thing became clear. In the wild, there are no second chances. A single misstep, a moment of distraction, and the jungle takes what it wants. The African wilderness is both breathtaking and merciless, a place where nature reigns supreme and danger lurks just beneath the surface. Sometimes, quite literally. For Dr. Richard K. Root, a man who had dedicated his life to saving others, the wild had something far more sinister in store. A world-renowned infectious disease specialist, mentor, and humanitarian, Dr. Root had traveled across the globe, tackling the deadliest bacterial infections and mentoring the next generation of medical professionals. But on a seemingly peaceful day in 2006, his extraordinary journey came to a horrifying and violent end. Dragged into the depths of the Limpopo River by a giant prehistoric predator. At 68 years old, Dr. Root was far from retired. His passion for medicine and education remained as strong as ever. When the University of Pennsylvania's Infectious Disease Department extended an invitation for him to help train doctors in Botswana, he didn't hesitate. The project was crucial. Botswana was in the grips of a devastating HIV/AIDS epidemic, and Dr. Root was there to help equip local medical teams with the knowledge and skills to combat it. His assignment would last 2 months, and in that short time, he was determined to make a difference. But amidst the hard work, there was also time to take in the stunning beauty of the region, a land teeming with wildlife, ancient landscapes, and vast rivers where predators still ruled. And so, on March 19, 2006, Dr. Root and his wife, Rita, embarked on what was meant to be a simple, guided canoe safari through the Tule Nature Reserve, a decision that would become his last. The canoes drifted peacefully down the Limpopo River, the soft murmur of water mixing with the distant calls of birds and the rustling of leaves in the towering riverbanks. The sun was bright overhead, glistening off the surface, painting the illusion of a serene and tranquil moment. But beneath the murky depths, something was watching, waiting. Dr. Root sat in the lead canoe, accompanied by a seasoned guide, a man who had likely seen his fair share of Africa's dangers. His wife, Rita, followed in another canoe, capturing moments of their adventure on camera. The photos she took just minutes before the attack showed Dr. Root at ease, completely unaware that he was about to become prey. Then the river erupted. A monstrous crocodile, measuring between 13 and 15 feet, launched itself from the depths. In a single, calculated move, the reptile lunged onto the canoe, sinking its dagger-like teeth into Dr. Root's body. The canoe shook violently, but did not overturn. The beast didn't need to capsize it. It had already won. Within seconds, Dr. Root was ripped from his seat and dragged into the water. A scream echoed across the river. His wife, just yards behind, could only watch in horror as her husband disappeared beneath the surface. And then, silence. Panic set in. The guide and other members of the group searched frantically, scanning the water for any sign of movement, but the river had already swallowed him whole. In that instant, Dr. Root, a man who had spent decades fighting deadly diseases, saving lives, and training future doctors, had become nothing more than another victim of Africa's unforgiving wilderness. Word spread quickly. Authorities and local trackers launched a full-scale search, scouring the banks of the Limpopo River for any sign of his body. Days passed. Nothing. For 4 long days, hope dwindled. His wife clung to the desperate possibility that somehow he had survived. Then, on the 4th day, the river gave up its secret. Dr. Root's lifeless body was found near the site of the initial attack, his remains bearing the unmistakable signs of a crocodile's ferocious grip. The man, who had spent a lifetime fighting death, had lost his final battle to a silent, ancient killer. Dr. Richard K. Root was no ordinary man. He was a pioneer in infectious disease research, a respected educator, and a mentor to countless physicians across the world. His work in sepsis management and bacterial infections helped shape the modern medical understanding of some of the deadliest illnesses known to humankind. But even the greatest minds are no match for nature's raw and unpredictable brutality. His death sent shockwaves through the medical community. Tributes poured in from colleagues, students, and institutions worldwide. He had spent a lifetime saving lives, yet in the end, no one could save him. His tragic death serves as a haunting reminder of the unrelenting power of the natural world. In the wilderness, even the most accomplished, intelligent, and respected individuals are still just another part of the food chain. The Nile crocodile is a master of ambush, a prehistoric killer that has remained unchanged for millions of years. With crushing jaws, capable of exerting over 5,000 pounds of pressure per square inch, and the terrifying death roll, a brutal part, it is one of the most feared predators on the planet. Each year, hundreds of people fall victim to these ambush hunters, especially in the rivers of Botswana, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. But it is rare for someone as high-profile as Dr. Root to be among them. Perhaps that's what makes his death so haunting. It wasn't a disease, an accident, or old age that claimed him. It was something far more primal, a silent predator in the water, a moment of peace shattered in an instant, a man of science, swallowed by the wild. And in the end, no cure, no knowledge, no expertise could save him.
There's an unspoken rule when visiting a wildlife park. Respect the boundaries between you and the animals. But sometimes, curiosity and excitement blur that line. And sometimes, nature reminds us just how thin the glass between life and death really is. It was supposed to be an unforgettable afternoon drive through South Africa's Lion Park, a chance to see the kings and queens of the wild up close. A 22-year-old American tourist and her male companion rolled through the sprawling enclosures, surrounded by lions roaming just meters away. Windows down, cameras ready, they leaned in to capture the perfect shot. Then, in an instant, everything changed. A lioness, her golden frame sleek and powerful, moved closer. At first, she seemed calm, just another magnificent predator blending into the sunlit savanna. But then, with terrifying speed, she lunged, claws scraping against metal, jaws snapping through the open passenger window. There was no time to react, no time to roll up the glass. The beast's massive jaws clamped down, dragging the young woman from her seat, pulling her from the illusion of safety into the brutal reality of the wild. Her companion fought desperately, struggling to pry her from the lion's grip, but it was too late. Park staff rushed to intervene, but by the time they reached the scene, the damage was done. The attack had been swift, merciless. The woman succumbed to her injuries before paramedics could save her. The man survived, wounded but alive. A cruel contrast. One moment they had been side by side, sharing an adventure. The next, she was gone. Authorities launched an investigation, as they always do when the untamed world reminds humanity of its place. She died unnaturally, a police spokesman stated, as if any death by a lion's jaws could ever be anything else. The park, a popular destination known for super close-up animal views, had seen incidents before. Just months earlier, an Australian tourist had been bitten in the leg after lowering his window. A 13-year-old boy had been attacked by a cheetah after sneaking through a fence. Warnings had been issued. Keep the windows up, stay inside the vehicle. But warnings are easy to ignore when the wild seems within reach, until it reaches back. The fate of the lioness remained uncertain. Would she be punished for following her instincts? The park's spokesman hesitated to answer, only offering condolences to the grieving family. But one thing was certain, this was no accident. It was a reminder, a brutal, tragic lesson that in the animal kingdom there is no such thing as a safe distance.
In the summer of 2024, what was meant to be a once-in-a-lifetime adventure for Lisa Manders and her husband Craig turned into an unthinkable nightmare. The New Jersey couple had embarked on a dream safari in Zambia, eager to witness Africa's breathtaking wildlife up close. But within days of their arrival, that dream became a horrifying ordeal, one that would haunt Craig forever. On June 5th, Lisa Manders, a mother of 3 and a respected professional in the financial industry, set out on a bushwalk with her husband and a group of tourists. Led by experienced guides, they ventured to a riverbank where a lone hippopotamus lurked in the water. Massive and deceptively fast, hippos are among the most dangerous animals in the wild, fiercely territorial and capable of charging without warning. Yet, the group was encouraged to observe from close range, assured that they were safe. Then, without warning, everything unraveled in seconds. The hippo lifted its head, a moment of stillness. Then it exploded from the water with terrifying speed. Lisa turned to run, but it was too late. The monstrous creature lunged, its enormous jaws clamping around her body, lifting her off the ground like a rag doll. Screams filled the air. The guides, who were supposed to protect the group, fled. The massive beast shook Lisa violently, its crushing bite shattering bones, ending her life in an instant. Craig could only watch in helpless horror as his wife was mauled to death before his eyes. In the aftermath of the tragedy, Craig Manders was left shattered, grappling not only with the violent loss of his wife, but also with the chilling realization that it could have been prevented. He has since filed a lawsuit against African Portfolio, the Connecticut-based tour company that arranged their safari, accusing them of negligence. He claims they were never adequately warned about the dangers of being so close to a wild hippo on foot, nor did the guides take proper precautions to protect them. Had we understood the dangers posed by the hippopotamus, we never would have agreed to be in such close contact while on foot, Manders said in a statement through his attorneys. The idea that we were unwittingly exposed to such an extreme danger, a danger made even worse by our tour guides leaving Lisa alone on foot with nothing between her and such a deadly animal, is nothing short of astonishing. African Portfolio has denied responsibility, with their attorney Rod Gould arguing that the company merely organizes tours and is not liable for incidents that occurred during the trips. My client is a tour operator. It organizes tours, Gould said. A trip, for example, might include airfare. We're not responsible if the airline loses luggage. But for Craig Manders and his family, this was not just an unfortunate accident. It was an unforgivable failure. Lisa Manders was more than just a tourist in the wrong place at the wrong time. She was a devoted wife, a loving mother, and a woman whose life was stolen in a gruesome attack that should never have happened. Lisa was the best mother and wife anyone could ever hope for, her husband said, his voice heavy with grief. Her violent death is a devastating loss not only for our family but for our community. The details of her final moments are almost too horrific to imagine, yet they serve as a haunting reminder of the raw, unpredictable danger of the wild. For those who dream of safaris, drawn by the promise of adventure, Lisa's story is a chilling, cautionary tale, a reminder that in the heart of the wilderness, the line between wonder and horror can vanish in an instant. A dream birthday, a peaceful river safari, and then pure terror erupting from the depths. It was December 1st, 2018, Kristen Yaldor's 37th birthday. She and her husband, Ryan, had set out for what was supposed to be a relaxing canoe trip down Zimbabwe's Zambezi River, a place known for its breathtaking beauty and rich wildlife. The guided tour promised calm waters and stunning photo opportunities near Victoria Falls, but nature had other plans. They had barely begun when one of the guides called out, a warning lost in the stillness of the river. Something massive surged from below. In an instant, their canoe lurched violently, flipping over as if it had been struck by an underwater explosion. Before Kristen could react, she was in the water. Gasping, disoriented, she surfaced just in time to see Ryan desperately swimming toward the shore. She was almost there too, just 5 strokes away from safety, but then it happened. A force like a wrecking ball clamped onto her right leg and yanked her under. The pain hadn't hit yet. Shock, adrenaline, survival instincts. The water churned as the unseen monster rag-dolled her side to side, its massive jaws crushing down like a hydraulic press. She had dived with sharks before. She knew not to panic. Hold your breath. Stay calm. She reached for the creature's jaw, her fingers brushing against its rough, prehistoric skin. For a moment, it loosened its grip. Was she free? Had she scared it off? Then, agony. Kristen clawed her way to the riverbank, her broken leg sending white-hot pain through her body. The severity of her injuries was unknown, but the crimson stain spreading into the water told her everything she needed to know. A guide wrapped a tourniquet around her leg. Ryan, hands shaking, tried to call for help. Across the river, tourists, safe in their vehicles, had stopped watching animals. Now, they were watching her. Kristen borrowed Ryan's phone. She dialed home. It was 2 a.m. in Florida, but her mother answered. "Do you want me to sing you happy birthday?" "No, Mom," Kristen whispered. "I got attacked by a hippo." For those who have never seen a hippo up close, its bite is the stuff of nightmares. Its jaws open to a horrifying 150-degree angle, revealing 36 dagger-like teeth, including massive canines designed to crush bone and tear through flesh. A hippo's bite force is strong enough to snap a canoe in half, and it had nearly done just that. Kristen survived, but the scars, physical and psychological, would last forever. The Zambezi had given her a birthday she would never forget, and a reason to never trust calm waters again.
The weekend was meant to be a celebration, a gathering of family, love, and milestones. Marika Engelbrecht had returned to a familiar place, a game farm in Limpopo, where the wild stretched endlessly and life moved at nature's rhythm. It was her mother's 50th birthday, a special Mother's Day, and almost impossibly, the first anniversary of her marriage to Juan Engelbrecht. She was 25, young and full of life, with the world ahead of her. No one could have imagined how suddenly, how cruelly it would all be taken away. Early Saturday morning, as the golden African sun cast its first light over the veld, Marika set out on a walk, her two beloved German short-haired pointers, Tasco and Jascha, bounding ahead. They were more than pets to her, they were family. The morning air was crisp, the landscape stretching endlessly before her. A peaceful scene, interrupted only by the distant rustling of leaves and the occasional chirp of birds greeting the new day. Then something changed. One of the dogs, perhaps catching a scent, bolted toward a nearby herd of giraffes. The towering creatures stood gracefully in the distance, their long necks swaying gently as they watched the approaching commotion, among them a mother and her calf. Marika, instinct kicking in, rushed forward, calling for her dogs. In an instant, everything unraveled. The mother giraffe, sensing a threat, moved swiftly. There was no hesitation, no warning, just raw instinct. Marika, in a desperate attempt to shield her dog, bent down, scooping up the panicked animal. And then the fatal blow. A single powerful kick struck the back of her neck. The impact was instant, merciless. She never had the chance to scream, never had time to run. Her body crumpled to the earth, lifeless before it even touched the ground. Back at the farmhouse, the family was unaware that their world had just shattered. The first sign came when one of the dogs returned, leash still attached, alone. That moment, when joy turned to dread, would be seared into their memories forever. Something was wrong. Visser, her brother, led the frantic search. They moved through the veld, calling her name, hoping, praying. Then they found her. She was still, untouched by trampling, no visible wounds, just the cruel reality of a life stolen in an instant. Her father, Fritz Visser, stood frozen, absorbing the unspeakable truth. His daughter, who had always felt at home in nature, lay motionless on the land she loved. The trackers later confirmed what had happened. The mother giraffe had defended her calf, acting only out of instinct. There was no malice, no rage, just the unforgiving force of the wild. The giraffe was left undisturbed, spared from any retaliation. Juan Engelbrecht, the man who had married Marika just a year earlier, now faced a world without her. Their future, once so bright, had been reduced to memories in the blink of an eye. The life they had built, the dreams they had shared, gone. She gave her life to protect her dogs, Smith, a family member, would later say. It was a tragic twist of fate. Her love for nature, her devotion to her animals, the very things that defined her, had placed her in harm's way. Marika had touched the lives of so many. Her warmth, her kindness, her love for the outdoors. She left behind not just family, but a world that was better because she had been in it. Her journey would end in Senin, where she would be laid to rest. But in the whispers of the wind through the veld, in the quiet rustling of the trees she loved so much, a part of her would always remain.